"Mama, I can't take it anymore." The words came out in a broken whisper, barely louder than the hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. Anna froze mid-step, her hand still resting on the doorframe. For a second, she thought she imagined it. But then she heard it again, her daughter's muffled sobs, heavy with pain no child should ever have to carry. For years, Anna had tried to convince herself that everything was fine. That Sophia was just going through a phase. That teenagers were moody, quiet, distant. Teachers said she was polite. Neighbors said she was well behaved. Her father, Sergei, believed she was strong, just like him. No one wanted to look deeper. It was easier not to. But that night, something cracked. Sophia was only 14. She used to laugh loudly, run barefoot through the park, and beg her parents to stay 5 more minutes at the playground. She loved drawing animals and taping her pictures to the fridge. Somewhere along the way, those drawings stopped appearing. Her laughter faded, her eyes lost their spark. And no one noticed soon enough. Sergei was a strict man, but not cruel. He believed in discipline, hard work, and silence about feelings. He grew up the same way. Life is tough, his father used to say. Crying won't fix it. Sergei carried those words into adulthood and unknowingly passed them on to his daughter. When Sophia began coming home late, locking her room, and avoiding family dinners, Sergei reacted with anger. He raised his voice. He punished her. He thought fear would straighten her out. He never imagined that every harsh word felt like another stone added to the weight she already carried. At school, things were worse. Sophia had become the target of quiet cruelty. It wasn't the obvious kind, no bruises, no dramatic scenes. It was whispers when she passed, laughter when she spoke in class, messages sent late at night telling her she was useless, ugly, unwanted. Photos edited to mock her, shared in private group chats she was never supposed to see. She tried to ignore it. She tried to be strong. But strength has limits. Every morning, she stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized herself. The girl staring back looked tired, smaller, afraid. She stopped raising her hand in class. Her grades slipped. Teachers scolded her. At home, her father's disappointment felt heavier than any insult at school. So she stayed silent. Until that night, Anna pushed the door open slowly. Sophia was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees, shaking. Her phone lay beside her, screen lit up with messages no mother should ever read. Anna's heart dropped into her stomach. She knelt down and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Mama, I tried," Sophia sobbed. "I really tried, but I can't do this anymore." Anna didn't ask questions. She didn't lecture. She just held her child and let her cry until the tears slowed and her breathing softened. Sergei stood in the hallway, unseen. He had come home late from work, tired and irritated, ready to complain about the cold dinner and the silent house. But what he heard stopped him cold. He had never heard his daughter cry like that, not as a baby, not ever. He took a step closer and saw Anna holding Sophia, saw the phone on the floor, saw the words on the screen. And in that moment, his world collapsed. Every message felt like a punch to the chest. Every insult screamed a truth he had refused to see. His daughter wasn't rebellious. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't ungrateful. She was drowning. Sergei felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest, fear. Not the fear of losing control, but the fear of losing his child. He remembered every time he had shouted instead of listened. Every time he dismissed her sadness. Every time he chose pride over compassion. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to say. So he knelt down too. "Sophia," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "Look at me." She hesitated, then slowly raised her eyes. She expected anger, disappointment, another lecture. Instead, she saw tears. "I didn't know," Sergei whispered. "I should have known. I'm so sorry." Those words, simple, honest, broke the last wall between them. That night, they didn't sleep. They talked, really talked, about school, about fear, about how silence can hurt more than words. Sergei listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, it wasn't to command, but to understand. The next day, everything changed. Sergei went to the school. Not to accuse, not to threaten, but to demand responsibility. Teachers listened. Counselors got involved. The bullying was addressed, not hidden, not ignored. At home, rules changed too. Dinner became a time to talk, not interrogate. Mistakes became lessons, not punishments. Sophia started therapy. She began drawing again, slowly at first, like testing fragile ground. One evening, she taped a new picture to the fridge. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Sergei stood in front of it for a long time. He learned that being a father wasn't about control. It was about presence, about seeing the quiet pain before it screams, about understanding that strength doesn't mean never breaking, it means asking for help before you do. Sophia still had hard days. Healing isn't a straight line. But now, she wasn't alone. One evening, months later, as they walked home from the park, Sophia slipped her hand into her father's. "Papa," she said softly. "Yes, thank you for seeing me." Sergei swallowed hard. He squeezed her hand and looked up at the sky, blinking away tears. Sometimes, the most painful truth is also the most necessary one. And sometimes, shock is the beginning of change. If you're a parent, listen closely, not just to words, but to silence. And if you're a child carrying too much, know this, your pain matters, and you deserve to be heard. The days after that night felt unreal, as if the family had stepped into a different version of their own life. Sophia woke up the next morning expecting the same heaviness in her chest, the same fear of facing the world. But something was different. The house was quiet in a softer way, not cold or tense. When she walked into the kitchen, her father was already there, making tea with slow, careful movements, as if he was afraid to break something invisible. "Good morning," he said gently. That single sentence almost made her cry again. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was normal, and normal had felt impossible for so long. Sergei took the day off work for the first time in years. He sat with Anna and Sophia at the table, listening as Anna explained what they would do next. Therapy appointments, a meeting with the school counselor. Steps, not miracles. Sophia mostly stayed quiet, twisting her fingers under the table. She was afraid to hope too much. Pain had taught her that things could change suddenly, and usually not for the better. When they went to school together, Sophia's legs felt heavy with every step. The building loomed ahead like a place she had survived rather than lived in. Sergei noticed her slowing down and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm here," he said. All the way, inside the school office, time seemed to stretch. The counselor listened carefully, her expression growing serious as she read the messages and heard Sophia's story. For the first time, Sophia saw adults react the way she had always imagined they should, concerned, focused, determined. "This shouldn't have been missed," the counselor admitted. "And we're going to address it properly." Those words didn't erase the past, but they opened a door. The following weeks were hard in a different way. Some classmates avoided Sophia, suddenly polite and uncomfortable. Others whispered apologies they didn't quite know how to say. A few looked angry, as if consequences were unfair. Sophia learned quickly that standing up for yourself doesn't always make you popular, but it does make you safer. At home, Sergei struggled too. He wasn't used to silence filled with meaning. He wasn't used to asking instead of telling. Many nights, he sat alone after everyone went to bed, replaying memories he wished he could rewrite. The time he slammed the door. The time he said, "Stop being dramatic." The time he walked past her room without knocking. Guilt can be loud. One evening, he found Sophia in the living room, sketchbook open, pencil hovering above the page. She hadn't noticed him yet. He watched quietly as she erased the same line again and again. "Can I sit?" he asked. She nodded. They sat in silence for a while. Not the old, heavy silence, but a shared one. "I don't know how to fix everything," Sergei said finally. "But I want to learn how to be better. With you." Sophia looked up at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. "I don't need perfect," she said softly. "I just don't want to be scared all the time." That sentence stayed with him. Therapy wasn't easy. Sophia had to say things out loud that she had buried deep inside. Words felt dangerous at first. But slowly, session by session, they became tools instead of weapons. She learned that the cruelty she experienced wasn't her fault. That pain doesn't mean weakness. That asking for help is not the same as giving up. Sergei attended some sessions too. Sitting in that small room, he felt exposed in a way no workplace or argument had ever made him feel. But he listened. He learned how his silence had been interpreted as rejection. How anger had sounded like indifference. One night, after a particularly emotional session, Sophia broke down again, not from despair, but from exhaustion. "I'm tired of being strong," she whispered. Sergei pulled her into a hug without hesitation. Not stiff, not awkward, just present. "Then you don't have to be," he said. "I can be strong for both of us today." That was the moment Sophia truly believed him. At school, progress came in small victories. Sophia raised her hand once in class. Her voice shook, but she did it. Another day, she laughed, really laughed, at something a classmate said. The sound surprised her as much as anyone else. There were setbacks too. A cruel look in the hallway. A bad dream that left her shaking at night. Healing wasn't neat or fast. But now, when she stumbled, someone noticed. Sergey changed in ways even Anna hadn't expected. He stopped working late every night. He learned how to ask open questions instead of giving orders. Sometimes he failed. Old habits don't disappear overnight, but he apologized when he did. And every apology mattered. One weekend, he suggested they go to the park, the same one Sophia loved as a child. She hesitated at first, then agreed. They sat on a bench, watching kids run past, laughing loudly without fear. I used to think being a parent meant preparing you for a hard world, Sergey said. But I forgot that the world is already hard enough. Sophia leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm still scared sometimes, she admitted. That's okay, he replied. Courage isn't not being scared. It's not being alone with it. As months passed, Sophia's drawings changed. At first, they were dark, heavy with shadows. Then color began to creep in, small at first, then bolder. One drawing showed a girl standing in the rain, but this time she wasn't crying. She was looking up. Sergey kept that one in his wallet. One evening, Sophia stood in front of the mirror again. The girl staring back still had tired eyes, but there was something else there too. A spark, fragile, but real. She wasn't fixed. She didn't need to be. She was healing. And sometimes, late at night, Sergey would think about that moment in the hallway, the moment he almost walked away, the moment he finally stopped. He knew now that love isn't proven by authority or sacrifice alone. It's proven by attention, by listening before it's too late. If pain teaches anything, it's this: silence can hide a storm, and one honest moment can change a lifetime. And in that house, slowly but surely, light was finding its way back in. Spring arrived quietly that year, almost cautiously, as if it wasn't sure it was welcome yet. The snow melted into thin streams along the sidewalks, and the gray sky began to give way to pale blue mornings. For Sophia, the change outside felt like a mirror of something happening inside her, slow, uneven, but undeniable. She was still learning how to breathe without fear. Some mornings were easy, others felt like walking uphill with invisible weights tied to her chest. But now, when the weight became too much, she didn't carry it alone. One afternoon, Sophia came home from school earlier than usual. She dropped her bag by the door and stood there for a long moment, listening to the familiar sounds of the house. The ticking clock, the kettle warming on the stove, her mother humming softly. She realized something that surprised her. She felt safe, not happy all the time, not fearless, but safe enough to exhale. That evening, Sergey asked a question that would have terrified Sophia just months ago. How was school, really? She looked up from her plate, searching his face for impatience or judgment. There was none, just attention. It was, okay, she said. Then paused. Actually, it was kind of good. Sergey smiled, not the proud smile he used to wear when she brought home good grades, but a quieter one. The kind that said, I'm glad you're here. At school, Sophia's world was still complicated. Some teachers treated her more carefully now, sometimes too carefully. Others acted as if nothing had happened at all. Her classmates existed somewhere in between, uncertain, curious, distant. But one day, during art class, something unexpected happened. The teacher asked students to present their latest project. Sophia's heart began to race. She hadn't planned to speak. She never planned to speak. But when her name was called, she felt a strange calm settle over her. She stood up, hands shaking, and held up her drawing. It showed a cracked wall with light spilling through the breaks. This is about pressure, she said quietly. And what happens when you don't let it out? The room was silent. Then someone clapped. One person, then another. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was real. Sophia sat down, heart pounding, fighting the urge to cry. Not from fear this time, but from relief. When she told her parents that night, Anna hugged her tightly. Sergey didn't say anything at first. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and showed her the drawing he had kept there for months. I carry your strength with me, he said, even when you don't feel it. That summer, they made a decision as a family. They would take a trip. Nothing expensive, nothing far, just a small house near a lake, away from schedules and expectations. A place where days weren't measured by clocks or grades. The first morning there, Sophia woke up to sunlight instead of alarms. She stepped outside barefoot, feeling cool grass under her feet. The lake stretched out in front of her, still and reflective. Sergey joined her with 2 mugs of tea. "I used to think rest was weakness," he admitted. "Now I think it's how we survive." They spent their days walking, drawing, reading. Some days they talked for hours. Other days they barely spoke at all. And both felt right. One evening, sitting by the water, Sophia asked a question that had been growing inside her for a long time. "Why didn't you notice?" she asked softly. "Before." Sergey didn't flinch. "Because I was afraid," he said. "Afraid of failing. Afraid of looking weak. Afraid of facing things I didn't understand." He looked at her, eyes steady. "That fear cost me time with you. And I'll regret that forever. But I won't let it cost me the future." Sophia nodded. She didn't need excuses. She needed truth. And this was it. When they returned home, life didn't magically become easy. There were arguments, misunderstandings, days when old habits crept back in. But now, those moments ended differently. With conversations, with apologies, with repair. Sophia started helping at a local animal shelter on weekends. The quiet presence of animals, their simple trust, grounded her. She learned how healing it could be to care for something that didn't ask her to be anything other than kind. One afternoon, as she brushed a nervous dog who refused to make eye contact, she realized something profound. "I know how this feels," she whispered. And for the first time, her pain felt useful, not as a burden, but as a bridge. At school, Sophia began sitting with a girl who ate alone every day. They didn't talk much at first. Then one day, they did. And the next day, a little more. Healing, Sophia learned, doesn't arrive as a single moment. It arrives as 1,000 small choices to stay. Sergey watched these changes with a mix of pride and humility. He started speaking openly with other parents, something he never would have done before. He talked about listening, about missing signs, about how silence can be dangerous. Some people were uncomfortable, others were grateful. One father pulled him aside after a meeting and said, "I think you just helped me understand my son." That night, Sergey sat in the dark living room long after everyone had gone to bed, thinking about how close he had come to losing everything that mattered. Not because he didn't love his daughter, but because he didn't know how to show it. Months later, on a quiet autumn afternoon, Sophia came home carrying an envelope. Her hands trembled as she passed it to her parents. Inside was a letter, an acceptance letter to a small art program she had applied to without telling anyone. "I didn't think I'd get in," she said quickly. "I just wanted to try." Sergey stood up and hugged her, holding on longer than usual. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Not for this, for trying." That night, Sophia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of her home. The same clock, the same walls, but everything felt different. She thought about the girl she had been, the one who whispered, "I can't take it anymore," believing no one would hear. She thought about how close she had come to disappearing. And she thought about the man in the hallway who stopped, turned around, and finally listened. Pain had changed all of them, but love had changed them more. Sophia wasn't defined by what happened to her. She was defined by what followed, the courage to speak, the courage to stay, and the courage of a father who learned that seeing the truth, no matter how painful, is the greatest act of love there is. And sometimes, the story doesn't end when the tears stop. Sometimes, that's exactly where it begins.